Hello there. We're going to talk about what's next after beer festivals go extinct. But first, I really want to thank Andrew and Craft Beer Professionals for the opportunity to speak to you today, and also Gorman Smith Beverage Company for sponsoring day 3 of the Fall Virtual Festival. So, what exactly does it mean to go extinct? Now, if you were to look at the definition online, an extinction event is a widespread and rapid decrease of the biodiversity on Earth, right? You think animals and different species go extinct, like the dinosaurs, 65 million years ago, extinct. The dodo bird, 1600s, extinct. What about huge craft beer festivals like Oktoberfest in Munich? Is it going extinct? Well, if you were to take a look at the stats for this year, 2023, it's sure not extinct yet. It's also not immune to what's happening in craft beverage. And so let's take a look at the stats. This year, 7.2 million in attendance, up 1.5 million from last year, but less beer was consumed. So what does that mean? It means that people are going for the experience, the engagement of it, check it off their bucket list. Here's another interesting stat. 50% more non-alc beverages were served to those attendees. Munich Oktoberfest is always going to be there. There's no chance that that'll go extinct. Well, you may be right. It's a cultural thing. It's a beer worldwide industry event. It's a celebration. It's rooted in history. Well, where we don't have that benefit and that tenure, that history, is a lot of the domestic beer events that are happening that actually closed this year. We saw a lot in the Pac Northwest and Portland. We're seeing beer festivals, small and regional, multi-state. They're canceling their events because budget, lack of attendance, defensive position, which really prompts the journalists to talk about the death of the beer festival. Now, this is a bit extreme, right? But if you saw this article from Axios, you would think, well, somebody's thinking about it. Somebody's concerned about it. And it goes on to list Great America Beer Festival and some of these Portland Invitationals and some on the East Coast that have closed their doors this year or greatly reduced in a defensive posture, and also recognizing what's happening with craft and what's happening with the craft beer drinker. What we're going to see today is that festivals are still very alive, but that the organizers are going to have to kind of tweak their thinking in order to continue to make them relevant. You would ask, well, when did this all happen? When was the single extinction event for domestic craft beer festivals, if you were to follow the line of thinking of the journalist at Axios? The default for a lot of people may be to blame COVID-19. And as we know, breweries were impacted dramatically from a staffing perspective, how they were able to be open, restrictions on attendance and occupancy, sales just sliding downward and downward out of control. You would think that you could also blame COVID-19 for whatever's happening to craft beer festivals. But the fact is, it was happening a long time ago. There are really trends in the craft beer industry and then micro trends within that have led to a reduced participation and energy around craft beer festivals. Hey, the first one, breweries just aren't as interested anymore. What we've seen in bigger craft beer festivals is that there are fewer breweries participating. They may be, watching out for their budget. They're in somewhat of a defensive posture right now, not only because of COVID-19, but because what's happening in the greater scheme across craft. Here locally in Denver, Colorado, I work really closely with a lot of the distributors here. And the week before Great America Beer Festival, for example, distributors were saying, yeah, we just don't see the tap takeovers, the week of events, the blowout special celebrations that we used to. We just don't see that. Our breweries aren't asking us to support those events. And honestly, if you've been to a festival, it takes a lot of work. If you're coming in from out of state, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of resources, it's a lot of money to properly staff a craft beer festival in the right way and the brand right way. So again, breweries stepping away from this a little bit. How about drinkers? If you were to ask the 21 plus, are you interested in craft beer festival where you can taste 500 different breweries beers in a 4-hour period? You might get kind of a mixed response, if not even a little bit of indifference. Tickets aren't selling out like they used to. If you were to look at the stats for Great America Beer Festival held most recently here in Denver, they sold out 1 of 4 sessions, and that sellout happened basically days before the event itself, not hours after making tickets available at the beginning of the summer. So fewer tickets are being sold. What we're seeing is an aging demographic, which is really challenging, but it's also reflective of craft beer in general, right? These festival participants are typically in the 30 plus age range, which is fine. And there's a lot of disposable income there. However, I'd challenge you to think about the future, the long-term future of your brewery, banking on 30 plus year old consumers. Quite honestly, they're a smaller group than are coming up in the 21 plus. But if we can't attract the 21 plus, then our runway for solid, consistent sales and growing audience is very short. These folks are very conscious, as we all should be, about overconsumption, but in a hyper-focused way. And this is really holding them back from any sort of overindulgent, especially overindulgence that happens in public. So you're seeing more drinking happening at home and with small groups. They're not interested in binge drinking, overconsumption at the extreme. They're more interested in an engaging event, having something to do, learning something, some edutainment, if you will. They'll try new brands, but honestly, a lot of these folks are learning from friends or influencers the brands inside and outside the beverage alcohol category that they should try. And they're also prompting us to think more about non-alc and alternative beyond beer beverages. These folks who do choose to drink in the 21 plus kind of sweet spot are balancing out their lives with healthy options. So if they do choose to drink alcohol, they're definitely pacing themselves with those non-alcs. Shoppers at retail, you're seeing this if you've got a retail strategy, if you've got cans on shelf, they're less interested in a competition win. And kudos to this year's winners for the Great America Beer Festival competition. A lot of our clients have racked up awards over the years, and man, that's good for them, and they deserve it. These beers are true to style. They're the best examples of style in their categories, and we applaud them for that. It means less at retail than it has in the past. You used to, 10, 15 years ago, you used to take your awards, and that was a launch pad for you. The press around that and the ability to start being in more demand, not only in your own region, multi-state and nationwide. These have launched brands in the past. Not as important to consumers nowadays. There's also the disconnect, sampling in person versus being able to find at store. You folks know how difficult it is to find some of our favorite beers at retail nowadays. Imagine sampling a beer that you'll never really be able to get your hands on. So why even take the time or make the effort? For shoppers, festival like a Great America Beer Fest or any of the invitationals, it just has less of a premium cachet than it used to. Doesn't mean quite as much. Their preference is really, if at all, to try locally and to support locally. And where we used to see these huge end of aisle displays with a win tickets to the local craft beer festival, enter here. We just don't see that anymore. It's not the draw. And the last of these four trends affecting craft beer festivals is the sponsorship, the dollars and cents that go into producing these massive events. Sponsors are just less interested. It's not a brand launch platform. It doesn't help them build the brand in the way that it used to, for all the reasons that we mentioned for drinkers and shoppers. Just being focused on beer is less interesting for a sponsor. They see the trends. They see that lifestyle, health, engagement, experience, adventures, a more balanced festival and more engaging experience for attendees is their filter for whether or not they sponsor. It's also not representative of what's happening in beverage right now. When you've got singularly a beer festival, then a lot of the drinkers who are interested in a wide range of alcoholic and non-alcoholic options, they're not as interested in this. Maybe it's overkill for them. Big brands, the bellwethers that have been around for decades since the early season of craft, these folks are pulling out because they don't see it having the return on investment that warrants being there. And it's less of a disruption. As everybody knows now, if you're not disrupting things, you're quiet. Your brand doesn't stand out. It's the brands that are really shouting to a certain extent that are making headways nowadays. And the disruption effect isn't the same at a craft beer festival that it used to be. You see this photo. When was the last time you saw 20-somethings taking a selfie at a craft beer festival? Sure, it happens. It happens. In the rare instance that you have a socially conscious influencer or otherwise 20 to 30-year-old who is at a beer festival and wants to make sure their friends know about it. Sure. But the influence effect that's happening right now with other brands, it's really not rooted at all in a beer festival, and you're rarely going to see that. And so if I'm a 21 plus young drinker and I'm hyper focused on the social profile that I have, I'm going to measure my time and my effort and my spend on those things that are going to have the greatest influence with my followership. Don't get me started on influencers. What does all this mean? These four trends in the craft beer festival industry. It means that the organizers of these fests have to tweak, have to change their mindset, else they are going to see the extinction of their festivals and their events, which has already happened. Today, you're going to leave with those tools necessary to either choose the right festival, or if it doesn't exist, to create it yourself, to create that engaging event for your target audience. Again, my name is Scott Kolbe, and we work with breweries, wineries, distilleries, non-alcoholic and functional beverages to do exactly this. Market your craft helps you plan for engaging activities that create sales, drive traffic, and build new engagement. We've had the luxury of working with some amazing brands over the years, some of which actually have executed these styles of big fests, most recently here at even Great America Beer Festival in Denver. It's no surprise that not all events are the same. And so we can't look at them apples to apples, but what we're going to try to do today is pick apart the best aspects of a successful, engaging beer festival so that you can use those as filters for evaluating your participation in such an event. And then we're going to take that and we're going to spin it on its head and we're going to create one from scratch. So you're presented with the opportunity every single day to sponsor, to donate, to spend your money in order to support and promote your brand. So how exactly do you choose between all those options? Well, make sure that anything that's presented to you at least checks the following boxes. We're going to go through these in detail. It's thematic. It's not just a 4-hour drink fest. It has some sort of deeper level theme that can engage your attendees. It's balanced. It's not just drinking, it's experiential. And what does that mean in terms of your roster of beer versus non-beer, retailers, pop-ups? Make sure it has some sort of charitable component because everybody is looking for the purpose or mission-driven company right now. And then lastly, please make sure that it has a non-alc option. So festival theme, we don't want to get heady on this. Sometimes you just want to have fun. Great. But beyond that, what is a thematic that applies to the festival that your brand can actively contribute to and participate in? Ask yourself, what's the story being told? And then what is my role? What is my brewery? What is my brand's role in helping to tell that story? From an organizer perspective, they look at it and say, yeah, we want to make sure that this brand is well supported. They're invited back next year because they contributed positively to the vibe, to the energy, to the event. From a brewery, very selfishly, you're going to say, well, yeah, actually, my brand and my story, my personality, my product were celebrated as a part of this event, not just a throwaway checkbox. So ask yourself, what's the value proposition, right? That marketing speak for what's uniquely valuable about this event and my participation in it. Is it share worthy? Is it in a venue that's got a beautiful backdrop and a huge opportunity for selfies and photos and group images? That this is what gets shared. This is, again, an opportunity for brand awareness. Can my story be highlighted? Not just a brewery listing, but the story of my brewery contributing to, again, this theme for the festival. And will it build sales? Again, the base requirement for any participation and spend is going to be ROI. Sure, you can just chalk it off to, well, we built some awareness. People know about us. I want to see it create sales. There are tons of examples. This is not exhaustive at all, but it gives you an idea. Good could look like different breweries from the same region, kind of the local players as a theme. Sports related, it's anybody who has an interest in the local professional or minor league baseball team, for example. The festival could be centered around a community group, either from a charitable or other perspective. Now, better kind of dials it up a little more engaging, a little more experiential. Perhaps an invitational where one brewery organizes a festival for a lot of their favorite breweries, their friends in the industry, which gives attendees of that smaller local festival a chance to taste outside their region. Food pairing. Imagine if you started to show beer in different use case scenarios. Pairing beer with food, cooking with beer. It starts to get a little more hands-on, a lot more investment from the attendees. Even new releases, if it's on a scale that would attract those attendees. Best, this would be a charity in common. Again, this is a lasting trend. People spend with their hearts as well as their minds. And if you are legitimately contributing to a charity and it's part of your DNA and your brand story, then find others like you and find festivals that support those charities and those groups. Again, purpose and mission-based, festival that celebrates the venue, the opportunity to be in an iconic, historic area of town rich with history and storytelling, and then play to that as a part of your brand. And then think about the informational, the educational, we call it edutainment. Think about those aspects of it to further engage your attendees. Here's a great example. Our friends down in Durango, Ska Brewing, we recently attended their anniversary party, but they doubled down and they went in and created an invitational for all their brewery friends over the years. It was small, but it was sold out. They celebrated their space. They had an amazing time. The brewers were out there talking to people. It was very hands-on. Again, a positive example of an invitational event. That's their thematic. So secondly, we're talking about experience. The experience is greater than excess. The experience is more important than overconsumption. A 4-hour drink fest is, again, passé. And so find ways and look for festivals that find ways to engage the attendees in a way that's bigger and more engaging than just drinking. It's more educational, it's more informational. They're willing to pay for that. And again, these folks are also hyper conscious and sensitive to overconsumption. You might find ways like this. Good could look like inviting spaces, lawn games, video walls. Better, meeting the brewer behind the beer, hands-on, craft your own, passports that tell a story as you visit each of these breweries. And then best, cooking and pairing, very hands-on. If you have individual or group activity, creating that kind of gamification of the festival. And then, again, cocktails, mixology, beyond beer. These are trends that are going to be around for a while. Being here in Denver, recently I walked through the Denver Oktoberfest, and you've seen this before, but keg bowling, it's fun, right? And people line up and they cheer you on, and it's very engaging, and it's relatively innocuous. So we don't have anybody tripping and falling. It's safe. See, these are the kind of engagements that kind of fit into that better because it's group activity. It's a little less about edutainment and it's a little less about the brand, but again, an opportunity to build some awareness. Giving back to the community just makes sense. The community has supported you, you can support the community. And that might be opportunity for not only the charitable donation that you do, but finding a festival that lines up with that, your mission, your vision, your purpose. Founders of your brewery may have a reason for being, and that could be very closely tied to a charitable organization. And if you were to find a festival that celebrated that, that's a pretty clear win and an easy story to tell for your brewery to be there. And remember, you don't want to fake support. People see through this very quickly. If you line up or say that you line up with a charitable organization that you've never supported in the past, or that you jump on a hashtag movement because it's trending and popular, don't go there. Make it a genuine investment. This is something that is a brand builder over a long period of time. And if you continue to support those events and continue to support those charitable causes, you're going to be known for that, and it'll be part of your DNA. A lot of folks have used cleanup efforts as a way to show that they're conscious about the environment and the immediate community. Our friend at Common House on the East Coast, most recently they did a Walktoberfest, and they are known for having a history of supporting local and supporting charitable organizations, and they do so in a very authentic and genuine way. And this is no exception. And lastly, people want non-alc options. It's very important to listen to them in this. So balancing the drinking with hydration stations and non-alc options, this is a mandatory moving forward. So look for those festivals if you choose to participate. In your evaluation, look for those festivals that balance the drinking with the experiential, like we talked about, the charitable, the non-alc options to help people pace and control their consumption. Also, if possible, if you're choosing festivals that are off-site or at a venue, please find a venue that has access to local public transportation. The last thing that you want is for people to be in a remote part of town, difficult to get back to where they need to be after they've been drinking. Something that happened most recently at the Great America Beer Festival, our client Partake was able to completely dominate the non-alc and designated drivers spaces at the festival, which was a complete win for them, completely on brand, and an opportunity for them to take a look at the audience and also give the audience those non-alc and those hydration options so that they can pace themselves with a 4.5-hour drink fast. When you're taking a look at festivals at this scale, make sure that your presence and your traffic pattern and the opportunity for promotion all line up to help draw drinkers to your presence. This is a huge sampling opportunity. And then you ask yourself, well, how do I know? How do I know if it was successful? The festival that I chose and I spent this time, effort, and money against, well, how do I know if it's successful? Aside from what you're going to get from the organizers, the basic stats on participation and attendance, you can start to dig a little bit deeper. anecdotally or otherwise, take note of what's happening with engagement. Try and take down different quips and sound bites about testimonials. Man, I love this product. I had no idea it was non-alcoholic. It tastes great. Always look for the sampling opportunities and how much product you're able to move. And then if it's appropriate, the leads or the sales generated from that event. And this is what Market Your Craft does. We help breweries like yours take a look at opportunities they have to promote their brands. And we conduct workshops in order to put the strategy for sales and marketing together to win in today's crowded marketplace. So we just finished talking about beer festivals and the evaluation criteria that you may use in order to decide whether or not to invest. Beer festivals are not yet extinct. Again, we challenge the organizers to think a little differently in order to be more engaging, else they'll continue to see numbers and participation decline. The upside of this is that they're still very viable, but those organizers have to manage to scale and to budget. And what does that mean? We want to make sure that we don't see an ungodly increase in the price to participate in a festival. The festival organizers are passing on the costs that they incur from the venue or from the trade show space. It's a vicious cycle, but there's going to be a point where it's simply not affordable. So if the organizers are able to manage the budget so that it doesn't create a barrier to entry for breweries, new or existing, for that festival, that's a plus. The second thing is managing to scale. You don't want to have an event space that's 2x the size of the participating brewery footprint. We've seen this with festivals. You have to lease or rent festival space years in advance. And so some of these things you can't plan for. But when you have so much empty space at a festival, it sends a negative vibe and negative energy about the festival and whether or not it's vibrant and engaging and it rubs off on attendees. So they need to manage to scale as well. But sometimes that festival doesn't exist. You may say, hey, I've got some budget. I want to get sampling out there. Maybe I do it myself. The same criteria that you're using to evaluate participation in these festivals becomes the checkpoints and the components of a successful festival that you design and build yourself. So how do you create that killer event? You've done events before, whether it's a weekly bingo, it's an anniversary party, you get it. What we're going to do is make sure that you check all the boxes to give your event the greatest chance for success. But it's hard. There's no doubt about it. It's significantly more involved than just signing a check and showing up for a sponsored beer festival. So these 4 criteria, really taking a look at choosing the type of event, designing that theme that we talked about, finding ways to promote your event using all the tools, and then planning for the worst case scenario. So 2 different kinds of events, on-site events. They can be awesome traffic drivers to your tap room. And these are the ones that we're most familiar with: the weekly, the recurring, anniversary parties, collaboration events, new product releases, even loyalty or a customer appreciation night. So these probably are already in your repertoire. Our friends over at Someplace Else in Arvada, they've got a weekly calendar that's chock full of events and opportunities. And for their tap room, it's usually filled on those nights because their fans new and existing, they recognize that there's something to do most nights that these folks want to go out. And here's a hack, if you'd like. The events calendar plugin is so robust, so beautiful. If you're not already using it on your website, maybe check that out. So offsite events, the festival is the obvious one. Sometimes you want to create an event that's going to be bigger than the space that you have or the permitting that's available to you. Things to think about would be sampling opportunities, guerrilla or otherwise. Is it an opportunity to get the industry involved and invested in your brand? Press, journalists. And then is there something that you could actually invite sponsorship to help defray the cost? I was lucky enough to work with Sierra Nevada, amazing people, amazing family, amazing product. And they went on tour to take Sierra Nevada and, in an invitational way, a number of other local breweries to take it on tour across the United States and to celebrate a style and partnerships with select brewers who are actually able to brew with Sierra Nevada to create a mixed pack. So much fun, huge footprint, huge cost. So what we've seen even today with Sierra Nevada is dialing it back a little. Rather than going on tour across the United States, they execute amazing events at their Chico and Mills River locations on either coast. They still want that engagement, but they've recognized long ago what's happening with respect to craft and beer festivals and not letting things get out of control from a cost and execution perspective. What are the components of a successful event? Some of these we've talked about, but some may be new to you. What role does your team have in this? It's important. They're the front-facing people serving beers every single day and servicing your customers. It's important for them to be invested in any events that you host. Again, we talked about charities. What's the share worthiness of it? If it's offsite, if it's on-site, are you creating photo spaces for people to share? Is there a way that you can dial up the personality of your brand and the participating breweries if it's an invitational, in the same way that you would expect a festival to help celebrate your story and your personality? And then, is it an opportunity again for a new product release? How do you celebrate your space? Inside your tap room, outside your tap room? Is it a popular musician? Is it an opportunity to bring comedy and some other engaging aspect other than just your beer? All of this is risky. There's no two ways to look about it. If you've got an event that you're sponsoring yourself, there's always the chance that somebody is going to raise their voice and not have something good to say about it, whether that's in the industry, a journalist, or otherwise. You might not see the ticket sales that justify the expense. You might have trouble staffing it. You might find yourself with just a money pit of cost. So there are definite risks. The upsides are great, but controlling and managing to these risks are also important. Once you have your event designed, there's an opportunity, organically paid and otherwise, to make sure that that event is 100% sold out. You want as many people to be there as possible, as many people to be exposed to your brand as you can. These are probably pretty common sense, but we're going to show you examples of how to use them to promote that event that you just designed, whether it's on-site, social, press, e-com. take a look at all of the promotional opportunities in your tap room and your space, whether that's the point of sale kiosk at checkout, coasters, posters, any sort of promotional opportunity to draw attention to timely, topical, thematic events that you're hosting, whether that's weekly or a big blowout fest. Tell your people about it. Make sure your website's up to date. If you've got an email list, send out an email. No matter what you hear, email is not dead. Email is not extinct. People use that as an immediate call to action. SMS text and any of the other digital means. You know this. People are engaging with your brand socially. And so you should make sure that anything that you're doing, any event that you're hosting, you tease it on the social channels. You build that excitement, you build that engagement. You take a look at the social posts from a consumer's perspective, and is this share worthy? Am I going to want to tell my friends about it? Am I going to want to sign up and buy tickets immediately? Social is one underused or not properly used means of getting the message out about your event. And public relations, sometimes this is scary. You think, I can't write a press release. I can't afford to have an agency or a contractor do it. It is very easy to put together a template for a one-page press release that checks all the boxes, and you send it to the media friendlies who are in your area, the journalists who are receptive to a craft beer story, and would love, they're always looking for content. They'd love the opportunity to talk about your event. Then also make sure to pay it off at the event by giving any journalists a safe space, a place removed from everybody. Give them all the assets they need to put together their stories, including artwork and the opportunity to take photos at the event, and maybe an in-person interview with the brewers or the founder of the event. E-commerce, if you have e-commerce, I know e-commerce is challenging from a product perspective, but a lot of you are doing merch sales and even non-alc in-state and multi-state shipping for your product. Use that vehicle to plus up your event, not only from a base ticket sales perspective, but merchandise around your event, packages, in a box type stuff where you might be able to package up a mini experience either in advance as a teaser or in lieu of being able to attend the event in person. And this again could be that new product opportunity and an awareness builder. Partnerships, if you've got those relationships in and around your community, local chamber of commerce, take advantage of these. You put in, and at some point you can draw that good karma out. Make sure that they know what you need in order to help promote. Make sure that they're taking a look, if it's a community group, at announcing and notifying their members of the event that you're having. Local restaurants, if they have cork boards outside, make sure that those posters are up there. And then also bring those relationships inside your event, whether that's pop-ups, retailers, food vendors, restaurants. Invite those people to participate. Again, it's going to broaden the scope of engagement for your event. Our last plug for Market Your Craft, what you're seeing today are those tools to help you win, tools to help you build traffic, engagement, and then capture those new sales, not only for events, but all aspects of your brewery. And lastly, the most successful organizers always plan for their events to fail. And that sounds counterintuitive, but they need to make sure that they cover every single scenario, because the last thing that they want is for paying attendees to have a poor brand experience. And so what we're talking about is the what if contingency plans, because rarely, if ever, does it go 100% to plan, right? You're going to have to plan for no-shows, you've got weather. The no-shows are going to happen. Just make sure you have backups. It doesn't matter why they're not able to come. You can't fault them. If you're not under contract, you really can't do anything about it. What you can do is have one or two options to fill if needed. You could also increase the footprint that's available for the other participating breweries, retailers, restaurants. Give them a value add because somebody else missed the opportunity. This is tough to talk about, but you need to make sure that your house is clean, your house is in order before you invite people in. What that means to us is, sure, you may have some challenges in your past. There may be some bad press around a recall that you had to do. You need to do an objective audit of your brand health before you pull off a major event. And the easiest way to do this, and probably the most straightforward and least expensive, is going to be have a social media service. Just listen to your brand, what's being said about your brand, maybe even 3 months prior to the event. If you've got disgruntled employees, if you've got distributors who never get paid, whatever the case may be, you want to stomp that out before you want to address it before the event so that those issues within your brewery aren't magnified, they're not exaggerated, and they don't detract from the attendee experience. Sometimes things are going to happen, overconsumption or otherwise, and you can look at this as, well, we're not going to worry about it until it does, or you can plan for it happening, and we would, of course, suggest that. An incident could be anything, but where it starts to get ugly is when multiple people are involved. If you've got security or first responders on site, they're called in, people start to share something socially, it can spiral out of control really darn quick. And so to have a plan in place ahead of this is obviously preferable to getting caught behind it. So crisis management helps to de-escalate situations like that. Weather's always going to happen. If it's an outdoor venue, just make sure you've either accounted for that with tents, ponchos, or otherwise. If you can't have a ticket refund policy, then you have to make sure that the attendees still have a good time while they're on site. And then there are haters. People who will buy a ticket just so they can use the event as a pulpit, as a forum for bad talking you. And it happens. Thankfully, it happens less often than not. But with social, everybody has a voice. And so it's, again, part of your audit to make sure that your house is clean and that somebody like this who means to stir trouble doesn't really have anything to sink their teeth into once they get there. And then have a plan for de-escalation. Make sure that you've empowered your staff with statements that they can make. Make sure a GM or an owner are available so that they can pull the person aside and have an individual conversation outside of the limelight, and then find a way to make sure that that person is escorted out in a relevant way. Last thing, we could take a look at sponsoring a festival. We could create a festival. Whatever you do, just do something, because the importance of sampling your drinkers can't be understated. Call it cans in hands, call it what you will, but take any opportunity to have somebody try your product, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, or otherwise. Now, at festivals, that can happen at scale and in mass, but you can also find other creative ways on a day-to-day basis to get the samples into people's hands, and that could be a retail demo. You could, where legal, do guerrilla sampling, especially with non-alc. This is a huge option right now. You could do product drops to local retailers. You could have rebates where allowed by law, rebates and discounts. And meal delivery services. This is something that it actually works. Again, we're allowed by law. So find that right opportunity, whether it's at a huge beer festival, your own created event, or otherwise. So at this point, I want to make sure that Andrew's attendees for craft beer professionals have access to any of the resources that you need to help take your events and other aspects of your craft beer business forward. And to do that, we're offering up any of the guides on our website at marketyourcraft.com for free. Just use the code CBPFall 2023. And with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present today. Certainly enjoy these. I know that we've got a couple questions that we've got a couple minutes to answer. If you have any additional questions beyond this, feel free to reach out to me. Again, Scott Kolbe at Market Your Craft, and I'll look forward to answering those questions as well as the ones that are coming in the chat.
Hey, Scott, I'm excited to feed these questions to you. A ton of great insight there. And when you said my name just now, I thought you were going to say, I wanted to make sure that Andrew was actually paying attention. But I've listened to the entire presentation, and it was awesome.
Appreciate you.
So we do have a question. The question is from someone, should I even consider festivals? What are your thoughts on that one?
And it's a great question. And I believe you should. For the reasons that we said, there's still an energy around the community of craft. And that shouldn't be overlooked. If you find a festival that actually checks the boxes on engagement and opportunity for sampling and storytelling, finding the right way to celebrate your brand personality and DNA, and making sure that it's a mix of non-alc, beyond beer, retailer, pop-up, and other experiences, I think it's money well spent. Just make sure that the organizer is taking care to manage to scale and to budget. That's going to prove best for your return on investment in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you. And you said budget, and someone else actually has a question about specifically that. How much should someone spend or budget on a festival?
It's a great question. Sometimes people look at spend in terms of their actual case sales. If you're selling at retail, if you're selling just in your tap room, you can create case equivalents or barrel equivalents, and then perhaps your budget for marketing, and then a subset of that being festivals, is a percentage of that. There's also zero-based budgeting, where at the beginning of the year, you plan for these types of expenses. It's hard to say. You can have a festival that's sponsored for anywhere from $1,000 to, in the tens of thousands of dollars. It's a matter of the audience that you're going to be reaching, how big your presence is going to be, how meaningful your sampling opportunity, and then lastly, the opportunity to convert at retail. If you're in a geography, the festival is in that same geography, and you can find a way to connect the sampling opportunity to a retail purchase, then that's, again, money well spent and money well budgeted up front.
No, I agree to that. We've got one final question. You said the phrase 4.5-hour drink fest quite a few times during this session. And obviously, that's not how we want most of these events to be known. So when pitching a beer festival to friends, what are ways we can better describe it? Do you have any tips?
That's a great question. And there are a number of festivals that we've attended, Andrew, you and I, and the listeners have attended, where 500 breweries basically equates to 4.5 hours of 1 ounce pours. And if you're there to experience new breweries, then that's a playground for you. But what we're suggesting is that the up and coming 21 plus drinker is looking for more engagement. And so how we would position and promote a festival would be a thematic experience with a side order of selected breweries. It's not the focus, it's not the hero of the marketing and the campaign. It's more so the supporting actor or actress in this particular play. So find that engaging hook. Find that either thematic, or find the 2 or 3 sentence storyline that pitches this festival as a celebration of food, fun, folks, and beer, right? Almost in that order, and less of a focus singularly on the drinking aspect of it. I hope that helps.
No, you nailed it on that one. Do you have any final imparting thoughts for everybody listening?
Again, really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thanks again to Gorman Smith Beverage Company for sponsoring today. And don't shy away from festivals. They are still very viable. They are not yet extinct. And if you push the organizers to change their mindset, they'll do so, and they'll create that engaging experience for your drinkers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for the insight today. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in to our fall virtual conference. Scott, thanks again for taking us home. And we'll see you in person in Charleston this December. And I cannot wait for your talk there, Scott. So
hey, I'm stoked.
You and I
thanks as always, Andrew.
Interacted virtually. So that's going to be a great opportunity to learn together, actually, in an in-person setting.
Can't wait.
Cheers, everybody.